Hello everyone. Welcome back to our channel. I'm so glad you're here, and I hope you're ready to dive deep into a life-changing question. Do people see the God in you? Imagine living your life in such a way that others see something undeniably powerful, peaceful, and loving within you, so much so that they're drawn to it. They may not even be able to fully explain it, but they know there's something different. Imagine if that something was a reflection of God Himself. Doesn't that idea inspire you? Today, we're going to explore how we can reflect God so powerfully in our lives that people actually catch a glimpse of Him through us. This is a journey worth taking, so stay with me, because this conversation might just transform how you see your relationship with God. Let's look at Jesus, our perfect example, and what it means to be a reflection of God. In John 5:19, Jesus says something powerful. I tell you the truth, the Son can do nothing by Himself. He does only what He sees the Father doing. Whatever the Father does, the Son also does. Think about that for a second. Jesus wasn't acting independently. Every word, every action, every thought came directly from observing His Father. This means that Jesus was like a mirror, reflecting God's character and love in everything He did. It's such a beautiful image, and it's one we're called to live out in our own lives. So, how do we reflect God in our everyday lives? How do we know what to do, how to act, or what to say? It can feel overwhelming, right? But let me give you a picture that I think will help. Think about an old-school copy machine. If you place an original document on the machine, it'll give you a crisp, clear reflection. But if you take that first copy and use it to make another copy, and then another copy of that, each image will get a little blurrier. Eventually, after enough rounds, the copy becomes so distorted you can't even make out the original image. This is what happens when we try to model our lives after people instead of God. No matter how inspiring or holy someone may be, they are human and can only reflect God's character to a certain extent. I want to pause here and say something important. It's great to look up to others and to learn from their journeys. We can find strength and encouragement from people around us, or even from leaders and pastors we admire online. I hope that this channel brings you encouragement and inspiration too. But remember, no one else can be your standard. Only Jesus can. He's the true original that we're meant to reflect. Because if we base our faith solely on what others are doing, our lives will end up like that blurry copy of a copy. We need a personal, direct connection with God, not just an imitation of other people's faith. In John 14:9, Jesus says, "If you've seen me, you've seen the Father." Isn't that a powerful statement? Jesus is telling us that His life, His actions, and His words are a direct reflection of God. And here's the challenging question for all of us. Can we honestly say, if you've seen me, you've seen a glimpse of Jesus? It's a tall order, but it's exactly what we're called to pursue. Now, let's get practical. If you're like me, you might be wondering, how can I reflect Jesus in my everyday life? For starters, it's about intentionally aligning ourselves with God's will. Jesus shows us how to do this perfectly. When He came to earth, He didn't try to go His own way. He resisted sin and temptation throughout His life, from the time He was a child until His death on the cross. In every moment, He chose obedience. And here's the incredible part. Jesus was so aligned with God that He didn't just resist sin occasionally or on good days. His obedience was absolute, down to every single thought, every word, every second. When we choose to follow Jesus, we're called to walk a similar path, though we know we won't do it perfectly. Walking in holiness isn't about achieving perfection right away. It's about moving closer to God, day by day, step by step. When we start striving to live in the light, we begin to see our own weaknesses more clearly. We start to realize just how much we need God's strength. Have you ever noticed that the closer you get to God, the more aware you become of the things that don't reflect Him? This awareness isn't to discourage us, it's to inspire us to rely on Him even more. It's also important to understand the strength of sin's pull in our lives. Those who don't actively resist sin often don't realize how powerful it truly is. I've talked to people who say, "I'm not a slave to sin," but I challenge them. If you're so free from it, try stopping on your own. You'll find, just as I have, that resisting the pull of sin can be incredibly difficult. Only with God's power and guidance can we overcome that grip. This is why Jesus, who resisted sin from the moment of his birth, understands more than anyone the strength of sin's pull and the necessity of God's strength. Here's another key part of our journey: learning to walk in obedience to God by being led by the Holy Spirit. Have you ever noticed that we all walk with God in different ways? Some may feel close to Him weekly, others daily, and some are even aware of His presence moment by moment. But Jesus is calling us to something even more profound: a constant, Spirit-led obedience. Jesus didn't just walk in obedience for minutes or hours. He walked in obedience every single millisecond of His life. He allowed the Holy Spirit to guide every thought and decision, making Him the perfect reflection of the Father. This is our example, our goal, and our inspiration. The next time you look in the mirror, think about this. What if your reflection didn't blink when you did, or wasn't in sync with your movements? It would be unsettling, wouldn't it? Jesus' life was so perfectly aligned with God's that He moved in perfect sync with His Father. He was a mirror image of God, a flawless reflection. And while we may never reach that level of perfection on our own, we can strive to let His Spirit guide us, to align our hearts with His, so that our lives reflect His love, grace, and holiness to everyone around us. So here's my challenge to you as we wrap up. Take a moment and reflect on your life. Are you looking to Jesus as your true standard, or are you focused on imitating people around you? Are you drawing close enough to God that people can see a reflection of His love in you? If not, don't be discouraged. We're all on this journey together. Instead, let this question inspire you to draw closer, to seek God more deeply, and to let His Spirit guide you. Let's create a community here where we encourage each other to become clearer reflections of God. Comment below. Share an experience where you felt like God was using you to reflect His love, or maybe a time when you struggled but found strength in Him. I'd love to hear your stories. And if you're ready to keep growing together in faith, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. We're all striving to walk in God's light and become better reflections of Him. Let's remember that the goal isn't to be a perfect copy of someone else. The goal is to be an authentic reflection of Jesus. Because in the end, the world needs to see more than just us. It needs to see the God who lives in us. So, let's make our lives a mirror, reflecting His love, strength, and truth every day.